Admiral Kyle Morrison pressed his face against the cold glass window of the space station. Far below him, Earth spun slowly in the darkness. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from up here. No one could see the millions of people running around in panic down there. 3 days ago, the big screens in every city had shown the same terrible message. Strange ships had appeared at the edge of their solar system, hundreds of them. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. Kyle turned away from the window and walked back to the control room. The other officers looked scared. He could not blame them. The enemy had sent 300 warships. Earth had only 47 ships that could fight, and most of those were just old mining ships with guns stuck on them. "Sir, we are getting another message from the alien fleet," said Commander Lisa Brooks. She was young but smart. Kyle had picked her for this job because she stayed calm when things got bad. "Put it on the main screen." Kyle said that the face that appeared was not human. It had gray skin and large black eyes. When it spoke, its voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "I am Admiral Zeekter of the Great Zephyrian Empire. Your pathetic species has exactly 68 hours left to surrender. After that, we will destroy every human city and turn your planet into dust." The message ended. The room was quiet for a long moment. 68 hours, said Captain Danny Walsh. He was an old soldier who had fought in the Mars Rebellion 10 years ago. "They sure like to give us deadlines." Kyle walked to the big table in the center of the room. On it was a map showing where all the human ships were positioned. It did not look like much compared to the red dots that showed the enemy fleet. "Danny, how are our surprise packages coming along?" Kyle asked. Danny smiled for the first time in days. "Better than expected, sir. The mining crews have been working around the clock. We have converted 15 old cargo ships into something special. The enemy will not see them coming." Lisa looked confused. "Sir, what surprise packages?" Kyle sat down in his chair. 3 months ago, when Earth's spy satellites had first detected signs of the Zephyrian Empire moving toward human space, Kyle had started making plans. Not plans to fight the enemy ships directly, that would be suicide. Plans to make the enemy think humans were something they were not. "Lisa, what do you know about the Empire's other wars?" Kyle asked. "They have conquered 17 different planets in the last 10 years. Every species they fought tried to match their technology and lost badly." "Exactly. They expect us to line up our ships and have a nice, clean space battle. They expect us to follow the rules of war that every other species has followed." Kyle stood up and pointed at the enemy fleet on the screen. "But humans do not follow rules when our survival is at stake." Captain Pete Johnson, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Sir, my pilots are ready. We have been practicing the new attack patterns for weeks. The enemy has never seen anything like what we are planning." Kyle nodded. Pete's squadron was flying ships that looked like they were falling apart. The enemy would think they were easy targets. They would be wrong. Down on Earth, Dr. Helen Carter was working in a secret laboratory buried deep under the Rocky Mountains. She had been studying pieces of alien technology that human spies had stolen over the past year. The Zephyrians were advanced, but they thought in straight lines. Their weapons were powerful but predictable. Helen had figured out how to make human weapons that the alien shields could not stop, not because they were stronger, but because they worked in ways the aliens had never imagined. On the other side of the planet, Commander Nicole Adams was training her soldiers for something no human had ever attempted before. If Kyle's plan worked, they would have a chance to board enemy ships and fight the aliens face to face. Nicole's troops were not the biggest or strongest humans, but they were the meanest. They had learned to fight in zero gravity, in the dark, and with weapons that most people had never seen before. Kyle looked at the countdown clock on the wall. 67 hours and 32 minutes until the deadline. "Listen up, everyone," Kyle said. "The Empire thinks we are just another weak species that will roll over and die. They have beaten everyone else by being bigger, stronger, and more advanced, but they have never fought humans before." He walked to the window and looked down at Earth again. "Down there are 8 billion people who will not give up. Up here, we have 47 ships and crews who would rather die fighting than live as slaves. Lisa stared at the enemy fleet on her screen. Sir, even with our surprise attacks, the odds are still impossible. How can we possibly win? Kyle turned back to face his officers. His eyes were hard as steel. We are not trying to win a fair fight, Lisa. We are trying to make sure that when this is over, the Empire learns that attacking Earth was the worst mistake they ever made. Danny checked his watch. Sir, the first wave of mining ships will be in position in 12 hours. After that, we just wait for the enemy to make their move. Kyle sat back down and began reviewing the battle plans one more time. Everything had to be perfect. They would only get one chance to show the galaxy what humans were really capable of. When pushed into a corner, outside the space station, the enemy fleet continued its slow approach toward Earth. The aliens had no idea that they were flying into a trap that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The countdown clock showed 0. Admiral Ziegler of the Zephyrian Empire stared at the small blue planet ahead of his massive fleet. The humans had not responded to his final demand for surrender. It was time to show them the price of defying the Empire. Begin the attack, Ziegler ordered. His voice echoed through the command bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Victory. Round him, alien officers worked at their stations with calm efficiency. This would be easy. It always was. 300 Zephyrian warships began moving toward Earth. In perfect formation, each ship was a masterpiece of Imperial engineering. Their shields could stop any known weapon. Their guns could crack planets in half. No species had ever stood against the Empire's full military might and survived. On Earth's orbital defense station, Admiral Kyle Morrison watched the enemy fleet approach. His hands were steady as he activated the communication system that connected him to every human ship in the solar system. This is Admiral Morrison to all vessels. Operation Wildcard is now active. Good luck to all of you. Captain Amy Richardson sat in the pilot's seat of her ship, the Relentless. 3 days ago, it had been a simple cargo hauler carrying supplies between the outer colonies. Now it was something else entirely, something the Empire had never seen before. Amy's ship looked damaged and helpless. Fake scorch marks covered its hull. One of its engines appeared to be dead. Emergency lights blinked weakly through the cockpit windows. To any observer, the Relentless looked like a ship trying to escape the battle zone. Zephyrian Fleet, this is cargo vessel Relentless, Amy broadcast on an open channel. Our engines are failing. We surrender. Please do not fire on us, Admiral. Ziegler heard the transmission and smiled with satisfaction. The humans were already giving up. As expected, they had no stomach for real warfare. Allow the cargo ship to approach, Ziegler told his weapons officer. We will accept their surrender and use them as an example for the others. The Relentless drifted slowly toward the center of the Zephyrian formation. Amy kept her ship moving. Like it was barely under control, she spun it slowly, letting the fake damage be clearly visible to the enemy sensors. Behind her in the cargo hold, 50 tons of modified nuclear material waited silently. Dr. Helen Carter's team had spent weeks preparing this surprise. It was designed to create a chain reaction that would make a normal nuclear bomb look like a firecracker. Enemy ship is 2,000 meters away, Amy reported through her comm system. Only other human ships could hear her now. Beginning final approach. On the bridge of the Eternal Victory, Ziegler watched the human cargo ship drift closer. It would dock with his ship, and he would personally execute the human crew as a lesson to their species. The Empire's justice was swift and final. Sir, I am detecting unusual energy readings from the human vessel, reported the Zephyrian sensor officer. Ziegler waved dismissively. Probably their primitive engines failing completely. Prepare a boarding party. Amy Richardson looked at the massive alien ship filling her view screen. She thought about her daughter back on Earth. The little girl was only 7 years old. If the Empire won this battle, that child would grow up as a slave. Sorry, sweetheart, Amy whispered. Mommy has to go to work now. She pressed the detonation button. The explosion lit up space like a newborn star. The Relentless vanished instantly, taking 3 Zephyrian ships with it. The blast wave crippled to more enemy vessels and sent shockwaves through the entire Imperial formation. Admiral Ziegler picked himself up from the floor of his bridge. Alarms were screaming throughout his ship. He could not believe what had just happened. The humans had turned one of their own ships into a weapon. Damage report, he shouted. 3 ships destroyed, to heavily damaged, his tactical officer replied. The humans used some kind of enhanced nuclear device. The energy output was off our measurement scales. Before Zichter could respond, more human ships appeared on his sensors. These were not cargo vessels, they were warships, but they looked wrong somehow. They moved too fast and changed direction too quickly. Their energy signatures made no sense. Captain Pete Johnson led a squadron of 12 modified fighters toward the confused Zephyrian fleet. His ships had been built from salvaged parts and pure human stubbornness. They did not look like proper military vessels because they were not supposed to. Wildcard Squadron, this is Pete. Amy just opened the door for us. Let's walk through it. Pete's ships split apart as they approached the enemy. What had looked like 12 fighters suddenly became 36 smaller craft. Each piece was armed with weapons that violated every rule of space combat the Empire knew. The Zephyrian gunners tried to target the incoming human ships, but their computers could not lock onto such small, fast-moving targets. The Imperial weapons were designed to fight other large warships in organized formations. Pete's fighters swarmed through the enemy fleet like angry wasps. They fired rail guns that punched through alien shields. By hitting them faster than the shields could adapt, they launched missiles that split into smaller missiles just before impact. They used tactics that no civilized species would ever consider. On the surface of Earth, billions of people watched the battle through their televisions and computer screens. They saw the massive Zephyrian fleet, which had seemed so unstoppable, suddenly struggling against a handful of human ships that looked like they had been built in someone's garage. Admiral Morrison smiled as he watched his plan unfold. The Empire expected humans to fight like every other species they had conquered. They expected order, predictability, and conventional tactics. Instead, they got chaos, beautiful, deadly human chaos. Admiral Zichter stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship and tried to understand what was happening. For 3 days, his mighty fleet had been fighting the humans. 3 days ago, he had expected this war to last 3 hours. The human ships were like nothing the Empire had ever faced. They did not fight in straight lines or follow any logical battle plan. Instead, they swarmed and scattered like insects. When his gunners destroyed one human ship, 2 more would appear from behind. Asteroids or space debris. Sir, we have lost 47 ships, reported his tactical officer. The alien's voice shook with fear. The humans are using weapons we do not understand. Zichter looked at the battle display. Red dots showed where his ships used to be. Now, there were only empty spaces and floating wreckage. How could a primitive species destroy so many Imperial vessels? Dr. Helen Carter worked frantically in her underground laboratory on Earth. Her team had been awake for 72 hours straight, building new weapons as fast as they could think of them. Every few hours, human ships would dock at hidden supply stations to pick up her latest creations. Doctor, the gravity bombs are ready, said her assistant, Ben Collins. But I still do not understand how they work. Helen smiled tiredly as she loaded the strange devices into a shipping container. The Empire builds their shields to stop energy weapons and regular explosives, but these create tiny black holes that last for just a few seconds. The alien shields cannot stop gravity itself. On the other side of Earth, Commander Nicole Adams led her Marines through the corridors of a captured Zephyrian cruiser. Her soldiers moved carefully through the alien ship, checking every room for survivors. Clear, shouted Sergeant Tom Parker as he kicked open another door. The room beyond was filled with strange alien computers and control panels. Nicole studied the alien technology with interest. The Empire's ships were impressive, but they were also predictable. Every system had backups and safety features. Every corridor followed the same basic design. It was like the aliens had never considered that someone might try to board their ships and fight them hand to hand. Tom, get our tech team in here, Nicole ordered. I want to know everything these computers can tell us about the Empire's battle plans. Back in space, Captain Danny Walsh commanded a group of converted mining ships that had been hiding in the asteroid belt. His vessels looked like ordinary cargo haulers, but hidden inside their hulls were weapons that Dr. Carter's team had designed specifically to fight the Zephyrians. "Danny, to all minor squadron ships," he broadcast. "The enemy is starting to figure out our small ship tactics. Time to show them something bigger." Danny's ship, the hard worker, had spent 2 years mining asteroids in the outer system. Now it was putting that experience to deadly use. Instead of mining rocks, it was launching them at enemy ships using modified gravity catapults. The Zephyrian fleet commanders watched in horror as chunks of rock the size of buildings came flying at them from every direction. Their shields could stop energy beams, but they were not designed to handle solid objects moving at incredible speeds. Admiral Ziegler received reports of more losses every few minutes. His perfect formation was falling apart. Human ships appeared from nowhere, attacked with impossible weapons, and then vanished before his gunners could respond. "Sir, the humans are using the asteroid belt as cover," his navigation officer reported. "Our sensors cannot track them effectively among all the rocks and debris. Then we will destroy the entire asteroid belt," Ziegler declared. "Order all ships to begin bombardment. Turn every rock in this system to dust." But as his ships moved toward the asteroids, they discovered another human surprise. What looked like ordinary space rocks suddenly opened up to reveal hidden weapon platforms. The humans had been preparing for this war for months, turning their own solar system into a giant trap. Lieutenant Jake Sullivan coordinated the defense from his position on one of these hidden bases. His job was to make sure the human ships always knew where the enemy was and where they were going next. "All units, this is Control," Jake broadcast. "Enemy Formation Charlie is moving toward Earth's moon. Mining Squadron Delta, you are cleared to engage." Captain Sharon Martinez led her squadron of stealth ships toward the Zephyrian formation. Her vessels used technology stolen from the Empire itself, but modified in ways the aliens had never considered. Instead of making her ships invisible, the stealth systems made them look like space debris or disabled wrecks. Martinez to Control. "We are in position," she reported, beginning boarding assault in 30 seconds. The Empire's ships were powerful, but they had never been designed to fight enemies that might actually get inside them. The Zephyrians had conquered other species by destroying their fleets from a distance. They had never needed to worry about close combat. Sharon's Marines used cutting tools to burn through the alien hull plating. Within minutes, they were inside the enemy ship, fighting confused Zephyrian crew members who had never trained for this kind of battle. The aliens were taller and stronger than humans, but they moved slowly and seemed to panic when faced with unexpected situations. The human soldiers were smaller and weaker, but they were faster, meaner, and willing to fight dirty. Admiral Morrison watched the battle reports coming in from across the solar system. The plan was working better than he had dared to hope. The Empire's fleet was powerful, but it was also rigid and predictable. The aliens followed rules and procedures that made sense when fighting other organized militaries. But humans did not fight like other species. They cheated, improvised, and refused to give up even when logic said they should surrender. Every time the Empire adapted to one human tactic, the humans invented 3 new ones. "Sir, the enemy is requesting a temporary ceasefire," reported Commander Brooks. "They want to negotiate." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The Empire had lost over 100 ships, while Earth's casualties were much lighter. The aliens were finally starting to understand that this would not be an easy victory. "Tell them we will consider their request," Morrison replied. "But keep attacking while they think about it." 2 weeks had passed since the Zephyrian fleet first arrived at Earth. Admiral Ziegler stared at his tactical display with growing horror. What had started as a simple conquest mission had turned into a nightmare that would not end. His once mighty fleet of 300 ships was now down to less than 200. The humans had not just fought back, they had turned his own weapons against him. Captured Imperial technology was being used in ways that defied all logic and military doctrine. "Sir, we are receiving another surrender offer from the humans," his communications officer reported with obvious confusion. Ziegler almost laughed. The humans were offering him a chance to surrender. After everything they had done to his fleet, they still had the nerve to think they were winning. "Show me this message," he ordered. Admiral Morrison appeared on the main screen. The human looked tired but confident. Behind him, Ziegler could see the bridge of what appeared to be an Imperial cruiser, one of his own ships, that the humans had somehow captured intact. "Admiral Ziegler, this is Admiral Morrison of Earth Defense Command. I am speaking to you from the bridge of your former vessel, the Star Crusher. Your crew is safe and being treated well according to the rules of war." Morrison paused and looked directly at the camera. "You have lost 60% of your fleet. Your supply lines have been cut. Your communications with the Empire have been blocked by our jamming systems. I am offering you one final chance to surrender before we finish what you started." The message ended. Ziegler's bridge was silent for a long moment. "Sir, how did they capture the Star Crusher?" asked his tactical officer. "That ship was at the center of our formation. It should have been impossible to reach." Ziegler did not answer. He could not answer because he did not understand how the humans were doing any of this. Every day they revealed new tactics that should not work against Imperial technology. Commander Ryan Phillips floated in his spacesuit among the wreckage of destroyed Zephyrian ships. His job was to make sure none of the alien vessels were faking their destruction. He had learned that some Imperial ships would shut down all systems and pretend to be dead, then reactivate when human vessels came close. Phillips to base. "Rex 7 is confirmed destroyed," he reported through his radio. "But I am finding something interesting in the debris field." Ryan used his suit thrusters to move closer to a large piece of alien hull plating. Built into the metal were small devices that he did not recognize. They looked like sensors or communication equipment, but they were much more advanced than anything the humans had seen before. "Base, I think we found part of their command and control system. These wrecks are still talking to each other, even after the ships are destroyed." Dr. Helen Carter received Ryan's report. While working in her expanded laboratory, her team had grown from 12 scientists to over 300 as more equipment and personnel were moved to the underground facility. "If the wrecks are still communicating, we can use that against them," Helen told her assistant. "Ben, start working on a virus program, something that will spread through their network and cause system failures." Ben looked worried. "Doctor, we barely understand how their computers work. Creating a virus for alien technology seems impossible." Helen smiled and pointed to a wall covered with captured Imperial equipment. "Ben, 2 weeks ago it seemed impossible that we could fight their fleet at all. Now we are winning. Impossible is just another word for something we have not figured out yet." Captain Sharon Martinez led her boarding team through the corridors of another captured Zephyrian ship. This was her 4th successful boarding action, as she was starting to understand how the aliens thought. "The Empire builds everything the same way," she explained to her soldiers as they moved toward the ship's command center. "Same layout, same security systems, same weak points. They never change or adapt because they never had to." Sergeant Lisa Chen kicked open a door and found 3 Zephyrian officers trying to destroy their computer systems. "Freeze," she shouted, pointing her weapon at them. The aliens stopped what they were doing and raised their hands. Sharon noticed that they looked scared. 3 weeks ago, these same aliens had been confident that they would easily conquer Earth. Now they acted like beaten soldiers who just wanted to survive. "Chen, secure those computers," Sharon ordered. "Command wants to know everything about Imperial fleet movements and communications on Earth." Billions of people watched the space battle through live video feeds. What they saw was impossible but undeniably real. Their small, makeshift fleet was destroying ships that had conquered 17 other worlds. President Mary Johnson addressed the world from the Global Defense Council headquarters. "My fellow humans, today marks the 15th day of the Zephyrian invasion. Our brave defenders have not only stopped the enemy advance, they have turned the tide of battle in our favor." The camera showed images of captured Imperial vessels being towed toward Earth's shipyards. Human engineers were already at work, studying alien technology and preparing to build improved versions of their own ships. "The Empire sent their best fleet to conquer us," President Johnson continued. They believed that superior technology would guarantee victory, but they did not account for human determination, creativity, and our refusal to accept defeat. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of his newest acquisition, the Imperial Dreadnought Doombringer. The massive ship was 3 times larger than any vessel in Earth's original fleet, and now it flew under human control. Commander Nicole Adams entered the bridge carrying a data pad full of information her tech teams had extracted from alien computers. "Sir, we have cracked their fleet communication codes," she reported. "We know the position and condition of every remaining Zephyrian ship in the system. More importantly, we know they cannot call for reinforcements. Our jamming systems have completely blocked their long-range communications." Morrison studied the tactical display. The remaining Imperial ships were scattered throughout the solar system, many of them damaged and running low on supplies. What had once been an organized invasion fleet was now a collection of isolated vessels trying to survive. "Nicole, send a message to all human ships," he ordered. "Begin Operation Cleanup. It is time to finish this war." Admiral Ziegler received reports of more ship losses throughout the day. The humans were no longer just defending themselves, they were actively hunting down his remaining vessels like predators tracking wounded prey. His mighty Empire fleet was trapped in an alien star system, cut off from home and facing an enemy that seemed to grow stronger with each passing day. 1 month after the first Zephyrian ship had entered Earth's solar system, Admiral Kyle Morrison stood in the wreckage of what had once been the bridge of the Imperial flagship Eternal Victory. The massive alien vessel now drifted silently in space, its hull cracked open like an egg. "Sir, that was the last one," reported Commander Lisa Brooks through the communication system. "All remaining Zephyrian ships have been either destroyed or captured. The solar system is secure." Morrison nodded slowly as he looked around the destroyed alien bridge. Pieces of strange technology lay scattered across the floor. The bodies of Zephyrian officers had been removed hours ago, but dark stains on the metal still showed where they had fallen. Admiral Ziegler was not among the dead. He had been captured alive when human Marines had stormed his command ship 3 days earlier. Now he sat in a holding cell on Earth, staring at walls and trying to understand how his perfect conquest had turned into total defeat. Captain Danny Walsh piloted his mining ship through the debris field that had once been the Zephyrian fleet. Broken pieces of alien vessels floated everywhere, mixed with the wreckage of human ships that had been lost in the fighting. "Control, this is Danny. I count 173 Imperial wrecks. That leaves only 27 ships that we captured intact." The math was simple and terrible. The Empire had sent 300 warships to conquer Earth. Not one had escaped to tell the story of what had happened here. Dr. Helen Carter walked through her expanded laboratory, which now contained more alien technology than human equipment. Her team had spent weeks studying captured Imperial computers, weapons, and star charts. "Doctor, we have finished translating the Empire's star maps," said her assistant Ben Collins. "They show the locations of 42 different species that the Empire has conquered. Some of them might still be fighting." Helen studied the holographic display that showed the galaxy from the Empire's point of view. Earth was marked as a small, unimportant world on the edge of explored space. The map makers had labeled it as primitive species, easy conquest. "Ben, prepare copies of everything we have learned about Imperial technology. If there are other species still fighting the Empire, they deserve to know that the Zephyrians can be beaten." Commander Nicole Adams led the final sweep of the captured Imperial Dreadnought Dark Star. Her Marines checked every room and corridor to make sure no alien crew members were hiding anywhere on the massive ship. "Adams to Morrison," she reported through her radio. "Dark Star is secure. We found their main computer core intact. The tech teams say it contains detailed information about Empire military plans for the next 5 years." Morrison smiled as he received the report. The humans had not just defeated the invasion fleet, they had captured a complete picture of how the Empire operated. Their star charts, military codes, and tactical doctrine were now in human hands. Captain Pete Johnson sat in the pilot seat of his modified fighter, looking out at the field of alien wreckage. His squadron had survived the entire battle, though. Barely. Half of his ships were held together with spare parts and determination. Pete, to all surviving pilots, he broadcast, "Congratulations. We just fought the biggest space battle in human history, and we won. When we get home, the drinks are on me." But even as the human pilots celebrated, work was already beginning on the next phase of Earth's plans. The captured Imperial ships were being towed to secret shipyards, where human engineers would study them and learn to build better versions. President Mary Johnson addressed the world from the Global Defense Council headquarters. Behind her, the main screen showed live images of the debris field where the Zephyrian fleet had died. "My fellow humans, today marks the end of the first interstellar war in our history. The Zephyrian Empire sent their best fleet to conquer our world. Instead, they have given us the tools and knowledge we need to defend ourselves and help others who fight against Imperial oppression." She paused and looked directly into the camera. "The Empire made a fatal mistake when they underestimated humanity. They thought we would surrender when faced with superior technology. Instead, we showed them that human courage, creativity, and determination are more powerful than any weapon." In the holding cells beneath the Global Defense headquarters, the surviving Zephyrian prisoners sat in silence. Most of them still could not believe what had happened. Their mighty empire had never lost a fleet before. No species had ever completely destroyed an Imperial invasion force. Admiral Ziegler stared at the walls of his cell and thought about the reports he would never send home. The Empire would eventually notice that their fleet had vanished, but they would find no trace of what had happened to it. The humans had been very careful to destroy all evidence of the battle. They had collected every piece of wreckage, every escape pod, and every trace of Imperial technology. When other Empire scouts came looking, they would find only empty space. Commander Ryan Phillips supervised the final cleanup operations in the outer solar system. His teams were using industrial equipment to collect the smallest pieces of alien debris and compress them into dense blocks that would be stored in secret locations. "Phillips to base," he reported. "Sector 7 is clean. No traces of Imperial technology remain. If anyone comes looking for the Zephyrian fleet, they will not find anything." Dr. Angela Thompson worked in a new research facility that had been built to study the captured alien prisoners. Her job was to learn everything possible about Imperial society, technology, and military doctrine. "The Zephyrians are not naturally aggressive," she reported to Admiral Morrison. "They conquered other species because their leaders told them it was necessary for Imperial security. Most of these soldiers are just following orders." Morrison nodded thoughtfully. "Angela, I want you to work with the prisoners who are willing to cooperate. We need to understand how the Empire really works if we are going to protect Earth in the future." 6 months later, the first human ships left the solar system carrying messages and technology to species that were still fighting the Empire. The galaxy was about to learn that the Zephyrians were not invincible. The Empire had sent a fleet to subdue Earth. Instead, they had awakened a species that would change the balance of power. Among the stars forever, humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in the most definitive way possible, by making an entire Imperial fleet simply disappear.